Hello and welcome to Hugh's Reviews, the place for movie views and spoiler clues. I'm sorry folks, but even though the live-action Aladdin came out this week, I literally could not bring myself to suffer through yet another soulless, bland, unimaginative remake cash grab. But, believe it or not, there was a time before Disney owned half the known universe when they were willing to take chances, when the House of Mouse was tops when it came to imagination, innovation, and taking chances not only to turn a profit, but to entertain us in new and fantastic ways. Back in the 80s, it did seem like they'd hit quite the slump, but when they released Flight of the Navigator in 1986, they... Wait, what? What? They didn't make Flight of the Navigator. They only distributed it, but it says Disney right on the box! Oh, doggone it! You know what? Screw it. This is Flight of the Navigator. Danny Freeman is your typical 12-year-old boy. He loves his parents, gets annoyed at his jerk little brother, and plays with his dog. One night, as he's walking through the woods, he takes a nasty fall, gets knocked out cold. When he comes to, he makes his way home only to find his family gone, and strangers are living in the house. The people inside call the police, and Danny finds out that he was reported missing 8 years ago. When the cops reunite him with his family, he is terrified. His parents are old. His little brother is now older than he is, and he hasn't aged a day. Where has he been for the last 8 years? Why hasn't he aged? Why can't he remember? Meanwhile, scientists from NASA have made a startling discovery of their own, a UFO hovering in a field seemingly abandoned and adrift. Thinking there may be a connection between Danny's disappearance and the craft, they take him in for testing. What happens next, none of them could have foreseen. Even though the movie is 3 decades old, I won't spoil too much of it for those of you who haven't seen it. Suffice it to say that Danny finds his way aboard the craft and is whisked away on a miraculous adventure by the ship's pilot, an artificial intelligence he dubs Max. Can Max help Danny get home, or will NASA capture them and keep them locked away as guinea pigs for the rest of their lives? Only time will tell. But the journey and the friendship it forges will change everyone forever. Hey, Joey Kramer as Danny Freeman is perfect for this part. Some will find his character a little whiny, but he's pretty realistic. Remember, not every kid is brilliant, and not every child actor has to come across as completely likable. They just have to be believable as the character as written. And as far as that goes, he does a good job. He's sweet yet smart-alecky in a sort of Fred Savage from Wonder Years kind of way. The AI pilot Max is charming as a straight-up no-nonsense computer at first, and later as a confused ADD-addled goofball version of the same character. Though Max was listed in the credits as voiced by Paul Mall, it was later revealed that that was a pseudonym for Paul Rubens, which a lot of viewers figured out during the third act as someone seemingly forced him to do his Pee-wee Herman laugh a tad too much. I didn't find it distracting, but I know some people who did. As mentioned before, NASA features prominently in the film. I did some digging, and while I can't find out why for sure, NASA and the producers must have struck one heck of a product placement deal, because every chance they get, the NASA logo is splashed across the screen like a commercial. But the fact that the agency has worked organically into the plot makes it less intrusive than it otherwise could have been. I don't know, maybe they let the effects team use their computers or something? Which brings me to my next point. The effects and the film craft. Most folks remember the movie being funny or touching, or how cute the Puck Marin and Max were, but no one ever remembers that this movie is actually a film-making marvel. The decision to make the entire interior of the ship reflective chrome must have caused numerous headaches with regards to lighting and frame composition, but director Randall Kleiser and his team made it work. It was an aesthetic choice that informed the narrative, and they filmed around it, letting what was right for the story dictate their actions, and that alone is an accomplishment. The use of puppetry for Max and the creatures on the ship, as well as the first-person perspective screenshots for the navigation station, bring real life and weight to the scenes that otherwise would have been garish or tiresome. The use of lighting sets the tone for each scene, making every environment seem unique and evoking emotion. The sunny greens of the park at the beginning, the foreboding moonbeams and shadows of the woods, the stark sterility of the NASA labs, and the utterly alien environment of the ship's interior all cause a different emotional response in the viewer. Even the difference between David's house when his family lives there to the lighting used when he comes back to find strangers in his home are utterly unique. Camera angles are used to make us feel every shift David goes through, from feeling alone and lost to suggesting wonderment and excitement. This is quality filmmaking. And the digital effects, oh my goodness, the digital effects! These days, computer effects are, yes, used everywhere, and we don't stop to think that there was a time when pioneers of the art had to struggle to just get a few pixels put together. Flight of the Navigator, if it were made today, would undoubtedly be an overly cold-feeling affair created on a green screen soundstage, with every single frame containing at least one digital effect. But this movie was groundbreaking in its use of digital wizardry. This was the first major motion picture release to use digital environment mapping to create the illusion of the reflective ship occupying a real space. The way it reflects the world around it as it flies through the air even stands up today, some 35 years later. Omnibus graphics did what no one else would have dared to do at the time, and it still holds up. Where more recent releases will look dated in a few years, this is still amazing to look at. Give those guys a cookie. They're fantastic. Navigator also incorporated stop-motion animation for the scenes where the ship wall melts into stairs, and the way they use perspective shots to show the hovering stairs without revealing their structure is a bit of sleight of hand I wish a few modern filmmakers would learn from. The stairs always feel real and have weight, and that's because they are really there, not created in a computer after the fact, and giving subtle reminders to a deep part of your brain you probably didn't even know was being triggered into thinking, hey, these are real, guys! Navigator is also so well paced, never getting too bogged down in exposition or melodrama for the sake of stretching the movie into a longer runtime. Everything flows naturally, letting us go on the journey with David and allowing us to absorb the plot, the emotions, and the backstory without taking away from what's presented on screen. Baker, Burton, and McManus wrote a tight script with the fluff removed, so all we're left with is what moves the narrative forward. After seeing some movies lately that just add stuff to pad a runtime, I really appreciate that. You can get the job done in 90 minutes, guys. Not every movie has to be 2 hours long. And the characters are equally as tight. Hey, think back and remember yourself when you were 12 years old. You go for a walk, and when you come back, not only is your family missing, but a new family is in your house. The furniture is different, and even the wallpaper has changed. This ties into a child's most primal fear, the thought of being truly alone in the world. When you're a kid, your parents, even if you don't like them, are a constant. They'll just always be there, right? I grew up being raised by a single mother, and I was pretty self-reliant. And even I know that if I came home at 12 to find the place unrecognizable and my mom missing, I'd have freaked out. Cliff DeYoung and Veronica Cartwright as the parents are just as good. Imagine you're a parent, and your worst fear comes true. Your child disappears, and after years of holding out against hope, you give them up for dead. That is awful. The pain and regret and the what-ifs cloud your mind, and then, after 8 years, he comes back, not having aged a day? That's pretty freaky, right? What do you do with that? How does anyone come away from that kind of trauma and be normal? It's no surprise that Flight of the Navigator not only resonated with audiences, but that it was a box office hit. What is surprising is that in spite of its monetary and critical success, no one made a sequel. I am extremely glad no one made a sequel. This was a movie that told a story, concisely and with passion, and making a sequel, or a remake as they proposed a few years ago, would have been superfluous. This movie shouldn't be touched. It's great the way it is. The one rule of movie making is, and especially when you're remaking a movie, can I do it better? And when it comes to Flight of the Navigator, no, you cannot do it better. Those who remember this movie remember it fondly. It is a true classic. That is because it resonates with emotional touchstones that are quintessentially a part of childhood. The fear of the unknown, the desire to understand the world around you, the feeling that there's something bigger going on that would be ever so wonderful if only you could reach out into the wide world and touch it. We all remember, be it ever so faintly, what it was like to be that age, and to know that innocence and confusion. This movie just feeds it back to us with spaceships and aliens. Find it and watch it. This is the stuff of childhood dreams. And that's it tonight for Hugh's Reviews. I'd like to thank Moons of Vega Photography for their continued support, and as always, happy viewing. Compliance.